Today we're back visiting Tom Oder, and we are going to look at his winter garden. Welcome back, Tom.
Well, welcome back to you and all the visitors. Welcome back to my garden. We were last here in the fall. We're now back in the winter, late winter. It's a typical Atlanta winter day, overcast, gray, a little windy, a little chilly. But I want to show you the winter garden. I love the winter garden because you get to see the bones and you get to see the hardscape, the structure of some of the plants. But there are also lots of surprises in the winter garden, things that are blooming, that are fragrant, that I think are really, really cool. So let's take a moment and we'll visit some of the plants in the garden. We'll look at the surprises that are coming, that are blooming, and we'll see the bones, and we'll have a good time.
Great. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it all. What's first?
Well, why don't we start with some peonies that are coming up?
Okay, great.
And they're breaking dormancy. So we'll start there, and then we'll look at some quince.
Okay.
So these are peonies. And this is a coral peony. That will be the bloom on it. It's a very unusual color. And you can see how it's coming up. And if you see the little cluster of what look like leaves, those are actually going to be flowers. And it will be a coral color, but it's emerging red. And it's just, you can see from the leaves and all, it's still part of the winter garden.
So what color will the peonies be? Does that mean it's going to be a red peony, or is it going to be a white peony? And that's just what the color they always are.
This will be a coral, which is a very unusual color for peony.
And is that why this little bit that's coming up now is coralish color?
Probably so, yeah.
Okay.
Mimicking the color of the flowers.
It's so little. I've never seen that from the very beginning.
Well, we'll come back in the spring and we'll see how much bigger it gets.
I can't wait. Interesting.
Then this is quince. And it's a little bit of going out of flower, but it's a very large shrub. I love it because it blooms around Valentine's Day, and when we have Valentine's dinners, I like to bring in the flowers and show them. But it's a beautiful red, and I bought it because I really like the color. It's got big thorns on it. And then these flowers, and yeah, it's blooming on mostly bare branches. Some of the leaves are starting to emerge, but mostly bare branches. And if you can zoom in on some of the flowers, you can see what a pretty red this flower really is.
It is so pretty.
Here's a little spirea that's blooming. This is always, it seems to be the first thing that blooms in the garden at the end of winter. And it's sort of an example of how winter and spring, late winter and spring kind of merge together a little bit. But it's a pretty spirea. And it also shows the will of plants, I think, to live, because this plant was as big as the quince just about, and it, for whatever reason, I don't know if it just bloomed itself to death or whatever, but it really died back a whole lot. And look how it's coming back.
Gosh.
I pruned and cut on it.
That just happened in a year? Was it last year?
About 2 years.
Okay.
About 2 years it took for it to come back and start blooming like this. And then we'll find some strong branches and prune it a little bit more.
Okay, great.
Oh, I wanted to show you a blueberry bush.
Now remember these, but they had, they had already been eaten off. So look at the pink buds that are coming out.
See all the pink buds? These will all turn into flowers, and then they'll turn into blueberries. And I really planted it for the birds.
Oh, I know. Okay. And when will they be blueberries? Will June or before?
Oh, before June. That's when it's starting to really get hot here in Atlanta.
That's true.
So it will be in the early spring.
Okay.
Probably April or so, I would guess.
It's still so pretty.
And it's just an example of how in the winter garden, when so much around us is asleep.
Right.
You know, these bushes are waking up.
And that's another one.
This is another one. I actually dug it up from this one and planted it over here. So eventually I'll have 2 of these bushes the same size.
And this is also a blueberry bush.
This is Rose's Blush. And oh, look, I think for the first time, I'm going to have blueberries on this bush. I don't believe I have.
Oh, my goodness.
See the buds?
I see the buds. Remember what I said last time? This is the year.
This is the year. You were right.
I said it. Look at those buds. I'm so excited.
Those will be blueberries. I can't wait.
Me too. Oh, my gosh, that's great.
It just makes the garden so much fun.
Look, there's lots of them.
There are.
Well, that's just so great.
Well, it's sited out here in the sun.
Yeah.
I'll show you another plant that I have planted. I planted one in the fall, and I just planted 2 more. It's another example of how the garden is still asleep in many places. But these are, I have to check and see.
Oh, it's got a little, looks like a blueberry actually.
This is actually, it does look like a blueberry. This is actually St. John's wort. And it
Oh.
makes incredible yellow flowers. The tag is, my mini pearl type tag is still on this plant.
Love it.
But it makes these yellow flowers. And the yellow flowers turn into berries like this for the birds.
Okay.
And you can see that this plant, these are, I just bought a few weeks ago, and they are still dormant, but I have scratched on it, and I know it's green. I don't know if you can tell.
Yes, I can see that.
See the
Yep.
green?
Yep.
So even though it looks dead, it's very much alive. And this one that was planted last fall, you can see the leaves are starting to emerge.
Well, St. John's wort, isn't that supposed to be help for depression? So you have extra happy birds who eat the berries on these trees.
And a happy gardener.
And a happy gardener.
We like that.
And look at the buds on this.
This is a hydrangea. It's also waking up.
It sure is.
See the leaves that are starting to emerge?
Yeah, it's so exciting.
And so will make, I believe, a purple flower. And they just survived 17 degrees.
That's amazing. We've had some brutally cold days.
It has been brutally cold. And we can walk out here. Everybody who comes by and walks by walking their dogs or whatever loves to see these hydrangeas in bloom. This is what they look like when they're out of bloom. It's just sticks.
They're sticks. They look dead.
They just sticks. They look dead, but you can see the new
hello,
growth.
There's something blooming right there.
Well, it's a bud. It's a leaf.
Well, leaf.
And it hasn't. And see, it was cut back in the fall.
Yes.
And so it should be full of blooms, big blue blooms. These are called Nico blue hydrangeas. And then over here, a little harbinger of spring. These little daffodils.
Oh, the daffodils are out. They made it through that. How do they make it through that brutally cold?
Well, they're these little plants are a lot hardier and tougher than we think they are.
They'd have to be.
Yeah, I bought this. I think this came in a nursery arrangement. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to put these bulbs in the ground and see what happens. And look at this, they're blooming. But then here's another little quince.
Oh, yes.
And this is what they call a dwarf.
Okay.
And I have really had to cut back on this, but it's coming back out really nicely. And look at the coral type flower, the color.
Very pretty.
As opposed to the
red.
That was up by closer to the house. And then I think it's important for gardeners to know and homeowners to know too, that on summer type grasses like the Zeon zoysia that we're standing in now.
Oh, okay.
This grass turns brown in the summer, or in the winter rather, because it's a summer grass. It's a hot season, warm season growing grass. Turns brown in the winter. Definitely not dead.
It looks dead.
It does look dead, but it's not. I promise. It will come back.
Yes.
This is iris.
Oh, because they're flat with purple and they're really pretty.
And they've been cut way back. And a lot of these came out of my mother's garden in North Carolina and Virginia. And I will hit these with a real high phosphorus fertilizer in a few weeks, once I'm pretty sure we're past the danger of frost, and help them set the flowers. But I really worked in the winter to kind of cut these back and clear all this out. But yeah, this will be just a mass of iris blooms if it does what I want it to do.
Oh, so pretty.
And then behind it are more peonies coming up.
Oh, I see them, yeah.
I want to show you another plant in the garden that really is one of my winter favorites. This is called Edgeworthia chrysantha. The common name for it is Oriental paperbush. It was used in Asia and China and Japan to make paper and to make banknotes in some cases. Money.
That's amazing.
My money plant. I kind of like that.
It's a money plant.
And one reason I planted it is because not only does it bloom in the winter, And I know you can't smell it, but it is
It
unbelievably
smells
fragrant.
gorgeous. I mean, it smells like honey. It smells so good.
And the other day it was a warmer day, much warmer than today. There was actually a bumblebee on it.
Oh.
But mostly the pollinators are not out to be on this plant right now. And as you can see, the flowers are what we call pendant. They hang down. And I want to say a word about natives and non-natives because I just wrote a blog about this on my website. And a person sent me an email asking, is it invasive because it's not a native plant? And it is not invasive. It doesn't make seed, so the birds can't eat the seed and then go out in the woods and distribute them in the woods. And it doesn't run, the roots don't run, so it's definitely not invasive. And we want to be real careful in what we plant in our gardens, I think, so that we plant plants that aren't invasive, that won't get out into the wild and disrupt ecosystems. So I've planted, I think, 5 of these and planted them in various places around the garden. But as I think you can see, it's planted by a path.
Yes.
So
Nice.
that no matter where you go in the garden, this time of year when it's in flower, you're in its fragrant embrace. So here is another tree that I think you will find interesting. This is the variety name for this is contorta. And you can see how the branches, see how they're twisted and turning. And the myth of this plant is from Europe, it's from Asia, it's from Africa. It was discovered in the mid 1800s in England, growing in an English hedgerow. And sort of the myth, which I kind of like, is that it's contorted because in trying to get up through the hedgerow, it was twisting and winding through the branches, trying to get to the sunlight. Then it finally got to the sunlight, and that's what gave it its contorted shape. And the common name for this is Harry Lauder's walking stick.
What?
Harry Lauder. Do you know who Harry Lauder is?
No.
Well, I didn't either till I looked it up.
Please tell us who he is.
Harry Lauder was a Scottish comedian, and his sort of trademark was a twisted walking stick.
Okay.
So this became known as Harry Lauder's walking stick.
I love it.
And it's in flower. You know, you would never put these on your dining room table, but these are called catkins.
So point out the quote unquote flower.
This is the flower.
So the flower is part that's hanging down or the bud?
But what's hanging down is the flower.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then what's the bud?
Yes, what's the bud?
The emerging leaf.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So when this plant is all the foliage comes out, you won't see any of the bark. It'll all just be a mass of leaves.
Oh.
And we'll do that. We'll show that in the spring and the summer so you can contrast it.
Yes.
And see how in the winter garden you really get to see what we call the bones.
The bones,
the
yes.
structure.
And this looks like an old boned guy.
You know, it does look like an old bone guy. I bought this actually at a nursery in Greenville in a small pot.
Really?
In Greenville, South Carolina, and brought it back and put it in the ground. And
how long has it been growing here on the ground?
Ooh, 10, 12 years.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, isn't that an interesting plant?
Yes.
And if you see, it's just loaded with the flowers, with the catkins.
Very interesting. I'd like one just in a pot. If I kept it in a pot,
yes,
would it stay small?
Yes, because the roots can't. If you keep it in a pot, it's almost sort of like bonsaiing it in a sense. The roots can't go out in the ground and get a really huge root mass.
Okay.
So it will kind of stay to the root mass that it's in. Now it may not live forever there. It may decide that it's just too stressed to keep in a pot like that.
Oh, okay.
But it's really kind of meant. But you can put it in a pot and see. It's always fun to experiment and see what happens.
Yeah. You do a lot of experimenting in your garden.
Yes, I do.
That's how we learn.
Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
And that's how we learn.
That's how we learn. The next plants I'd like to show you are called Fatsia. These are another Asian plant, and it's Fatsia japonica. And I just want to show you the several different leaf colors. And 2 are in pots, and 1 is in the ground. And you can see how big they get, and you'll see the one in flower, the one that's in the ground.
Great.
So look at the variation in these leaves. Isn't that pretty?
Very pretty. That, I guess you call it variegated.
Variegated, yes. So these leaves are variegated. It's not big enough to flower yet.
But what's interesting is some are variegated and some aren't.
Well, I think the new growth is, and that's an interesting point, that the new growth I'm going to guess is variegated, and then as it grows older, the variegation fades and then shows up again in the new growth. Although this is a new growth too, so we'll
I
see
was
if
going to
it.
say, because it would seem to me that'd be opposite. It'd be variegated first, and then it would fill out and go green.
Well, now you've got me thinking, so I'm just going to have to
We'll
watch
have to
this.
look that up or
Is,
watch it. Watch it,
yeah,
yeah.
watch it and see what happens.
All right.
Now here's another one. Notice the yellow in this one. This is a leaf that was not happy at 17 degrees, and so I'll just have to
Yeah.
cut it back. The plant is not dead. This one got a little bit frostbitten too.
Poor guys.
But look at the difference in the leaves in
Yeah, this
this
is
one.
yellow. Got a lot of yellow in it as opposed to the white of the other one.
Isn't that pretty?
Yeah, very pretty.
Now, when these get big and they start outgrowing their pot, I'll show you where their new home is going to be.
Oh, okay.
It's with another one.
Oh, great. Aha.
This is a plant of Fatsia japonica, and it is in flower. It's been in flower since about the 1st of December. The buds started forming in the fall. Look how big that plant is compared to the ones that are in the pot. And one reason I think this plant is so happy is that we're standing at the top of a ravine. And plants like good drainage for the most part. They don't want to
Right.
sit in water and have their roots wet.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a big slope. I don't know if you can tell it in the video,
I can see it.
but the drainage, it goes and it just, the water drains off, so it gets wet, the water drains away, and the flowers are just, I think, really kind of cool.
So,
and
the
unusual.
berries, they look like berries. Is that what you're calling the flower?
That's what I'm calling the flower. They don't
Okay,
like open
they
up
don't
and
open up. So that little cluster of what I'm calling berries is the flower.
that's the flower.
Aren't they pretty?
And which brings up another interesting point, I think, about uh, garden plants, and it seems to be maybe particularly true in the winter. You don't get the sort of blossom that you want to put on your dining room table.
Right.
These are more of what we call botanical interest. So a plant nut like me finds them interesting, but
Oh, I do too. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if you're going to put them on your dining room table, that although I've used them actually in Christmas decorations.
I believe it.
So they're
Especially
pretty.
from a plant this big, it's going to have a lot of the blossoms, so you can feel okay cutting them off use them.
You can, and I actually had a landscape designer stand here and look at this plant, and he tried to say something, and his mouth was moving, but no words came out. And then he looked at me and he said, "This plant doesn't get this big."
Really?
He did. He said, "This plant doesn't get this big."
He was speechless.
He was, and I said, "Well, actually, it does.
Yeah,
Actually,
here's
it does."
proof.
So when the two plants we just looked at, the variegated and the yellow, outgrow their pots, I'm going to put them here, and I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to put them yet, but they're going to go in here with this, and this will be just sort of a mass of these plants.
Beautiful.
And then they'll be big like this and bloom and flower.
And what do they look like in the summertime?
Just the leaves. So
do they stay that same greenish color?
yes, it'll stay this same greenish color. The blossoms will fade off. I think you can see here where I think the birds have been eating on
Oh,
them.
yes, yes.
But yeah, it'll just be the green leaves, and then kind of a big tropical looking leaf, and
Yeah, it does.
I sort of like that.
I do too.
That tropical look. I think it's interesting. Here's a Japanese maple that I think also helps to show the winter garden, and the bones and the structure, and you can see the plant. I mean, you can see when it's full of leaves, you really can't see this limb structure, but this really gives you an idea of what the limb structure and the bones of these plants look like in the winter.
They're tiny little buds, though.
Yeah, tiny little buds. They're tightly closed. They're not ready to open yet. But this to me is part of the joy of the winter garden, and it's why I like to come out in the garden in the winter and then listening to the birds in the background.
Yes, yes.
So we will, let's see, we'll come through here. I like garden art. A friend gave me this for Christmas. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah, that's very pretty.
Little wind chimes.
Yeah, very pretty.
And then another piece of garden art over here.
And Look at Buddy. He's just looking out over the garden. He loves
He's
it too.
surveying his domain.
That's right. Oh, I love this.
Isn't this cool?
Look at that.
And it's not particularly breezy at the moment, but it doesn't take much to get this to turn and to spin.
Wow.
Isn't that pretty? And a friend of mine
Beautiful.
who's a master woodworker made that for me. And it was, it's probably 16 months old now, maybe 18 months old since I hung it. And it was just, you can see how it's weathering, and I think it takes on its own sort of patina, and as it weathers and develops its own sort of beauty.
It's beautiful.
Isn't
Look
it
at the way
pretty?
it twists. It's a work of art.
It is. It is. It's pretty.
Yeah. And the camellias are beautiful, but dropping.
They're dropping.
Yeah.
They don't like cold weather.
Yeah.
And you can see they've still got buds that will be blooming for a while.
Yeah, nice.
And the squirrels, believe it or not, they like to get up here and they like to eat these buds. It's
Well, shame on them.
yeah, shame on them. I don't know what they're thinking.
Squirrels.
More Edgeworthia. But a plant back here that I'd like for you to see is witch hazel.
Oh, we talked about that. Yes, in the fall.
Remember in the fall we looked at it and we were showing the buds, the flower buds, and they were really tightly closed. But now they've opened, and this is what they look like. This little twisted petal, short twisted petals.
That's
blooming.
the blossom.
That's the blossom, blooming on a bare branch. And I suppose you could cut it and take it in, but I really don't like to do that because I like to leave this out for the pollinators. And see, look at the ones up here that haven't quite opened yet.
So is this as full a bloom as this will get?
It's as full as each flower will get.
Okay.
As the tree gets bigger, there'll be more flowers and it can be just covered.
Oh, I see. That's right. You said that it got cut back, putting in the fence.
Yes, we put in the fence to keep the deer out and to keep Buddy in. And this tree was in the way, and you can see sort of the stump down here. It got cut on pretty good.
Yeah.
But plants have such a strong desire and will to live that it's coming back. It's meant to be a small understory tree. So it's not going to get big like the trees we see growing in the ravine behind us.
So the buds on the end of this one, so those right here on this.
Yes.
So when they actually open, that's when the spirally thing comes out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you can see the flowers that are completely open.
Yes.
And then here, they're not completely open. They're not open really at all. They're still, they're showing color.
Yeah.
But they haven't opened. And then the same here.
Okay.
And here again, a botanical interest more than say a floral interest or a florist interest, I should say. You know, in your garden, in various places in your garden, you will find where you have little, what I call mini ecosystems. It's where maybe you want a spot of shade and you have this little spot of shade, or you have a spot of sun, and you can plant something that takes bright light in an area that's really sort of a high shade garden, which is what we're in now. But we're in sort of a window where we get 4 to 5 hours of sunlight coming through here in the afternoon. So I'm trying to create, I like the look of a cottage garden. So I've planted some David Austin roses in here. I've started planting them. That will give this that sort of look. That, for the most part, in my mind, the Austin roses have sort of a cabbagey look to them, a big sort of full flower. And so this was just planted a couple of weeks ago. It's rooted in, and look at the new growth that's starting to emerge.
Oh.
So I've got this little mini ecosystem, and I like to experiment with light levels and see what happens in the garden. Right. This is a tree. This is another Japanese maple. And it has been in the ground for many, many, many years, maybe 15, 20. And look at you can really see the shape of this tree structure. Now when it leaves out, these will be red leaves and what they call a thread leaf Japanese maple. The leaves will be very thin. Oh. Real, and I think I
can picture that. I just didn't know what it was called.
Yeah, that's called thread leaf, which I think is a really cool look on Japanese maples. And even though they're not native, the color is so cool when it comes out in this red. Then it will fade to green. And this is a grafted tree. That the graft means that what we see growing in the branches is actually growing off of another rootstock of a different tree. And if you look down here, see the knot?
Well, explain that. I'm not following.
Okay. So on a grafted tree, this part of the tree is not the same as this part of the tree. This is generally an undesirable tree in terms of botanical interest. So they take the breeders take a tree like they take the stock, and then they'll put a desirable tree, they'll graft it onto this. And that's
Wow.
called grafting.
So was the bottom part a Japanese maple?
I don't know.
It could have been anything.
It could have been anything.
Really?
I think.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
I'm going to guess it was a Japanese maple, but I don't know. And look at the roots. You can see that this.
Oh, that is really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's called grafting.
Okay.
That's called grafting.
You can definitely see that in the trunk. And
Yeah.
then it turns out to be this really beautiful tree.
And this will be, again, when it leaves out, you will not even see these branches. They'll just be such a mass,
oh, wow.
such a mass of leaves. This is my camellia grove. And they've gotten a little bit high. I've got to cut them back, but I'm not sure if you can see the flower that's growing up here, if it's not too backlit.
No, very pretty.
There's red and white and pink and just various types of camellias in here. And then one thing I wanted to show about the Edgeworthias, here is another one. This is the same variety that was growing in the front. And this tree, or this shrub, just got massive. But to give you an idea of how big it got, look at this branch. It must be 3 inches across.
Oh, it's like a trunk, not a branch.
Well, it does, doesn't it? That was probably the main growth.
Okay.
And then you can see how the other branches sort of suckered out from it. And one of the questions I think growers have is, should they cut these suckers off and just let the main branches show? I don't think there's a right or wrong. I let the suckers come out. But
depends on how you want your garden to look.
Sure, exactly. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of personal choice. But the way this branch came out, it laid on the ground. And it was laying here. And guess what? When it laid on the ground, it rooted.
It took root.
And so this grew off of that branch. And when that branch died, this stayed alive because it was rooted in the ground.
Oh my goodness.
And I cut the branch behind it.
Okay.
And now in the spring or early summer, late spring, I'll plant this in another place.
Oh, so you'll dig it up and put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's an exact duplicate of the mother plant.
It's the baby.
It's the baby.
The baby from the mama tree.
There you go. Another thing you can do in the winter, and it's a great time to do this, and that is to do a soil test. And that's particularly important if you have a particular variety of plants that you're trying to grow. And roses is one of those. And UGA will do a soil test for you for $25. They're really easy to understand. They send really easy instructions on how to do them. They send you a little bag. You put your soil in. You just dig up some soil, let it dry out a little bit, get out any little pebbles or anything like that. You mail it off to UGA, and voila. Back in your email inbox comes instructions on exactly what your soil content, the chemical content. It's really easy to understand. And it's also really easy when they tell you what you need to add to your soil to make your plants grow better.
Who knew? That is spectacular.
Who knew?
Can you do that anywhere in the U.S.? Send them in?
I think so. Anywhere in the U.S., just you go use your extension service. And it's a service that the extension service provides. And it's really critical for plants that I like roses. I think they're a little finicky if you're trying to go, say, competition quality roses. The same can be true with hydrangeas. They're really particular about their soil pH. So you do a soil test for each type of plant you want to grow, whether it's roses, whether it's a vegetable garden or an herb garden or hydrangeas. And again, the results come back in your email inbox. It's super easy to understand, and the amendments you might need are easy to acquire. Well, thank you for visiting my garden. I wanted to close with this because this is something so simple that everyone can do it. This is my little herb garden. A lot of it's asleep. The parsley's growing, you can see. I've got some kale growing, some chives growing, but look at these leaves. I like to just pick up leaves around the yard or even in neighbors' yards, and they think I'm such a help.
They'll love it.
But I bring them back and I put them in my herb garden. And these are mostly oak leaves. And when I get ready to plant my herbs in the spring, which we'll come and visit next, I dig all this up. I turn these oak leaves into the soil. And it just makes a really rich soil to grow herbs in. So you can do that at home too.
An enormous thank you to Tom Oder, the consummate gardener and gentleman, for sharing his home and garden with us. Bluing House will continue to visit Tom and his garden as it evolves over a year's time and beyond. If you have questions for Tom, please visit his website, which is linked below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it so we can bring you more Bluing House content. And as always, be sweet.